Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you're just done? Like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders and every step forward feels like walking through mud? If that's you, listen closely. Because what you're feeling is not weakness, it's evidence that you're trying. You see, no one feels like giving up when they're sitting on the couch doing nothing. You only feel like giving up when you're fighting for something. That dream, that goal, that change you're trying to make. It's big, it's big, scary, it's messy, and it's so worth it, the motivation. It doesn't always come knocking. Some days you wake up and it's just gone. That fire, that drive, you can't even remember what it felt like. And in those moments, I want you to remember this. You don't need to feel motivated to take action. You need to take action to feel motivated. Now, you've been lied to if you think you have to feel like it to move forward. Motivation doesn't come from the sky. It comes from movement. From doing one thing, even if it's small, even if it's messy, even if you're crying while you do it. Let me tell you a secret. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in life don't come when everything's perfect. They come when you're on your knees, when you're tired, when you're ready to quit, but you don't. You take that one more step, you make that one more call, you write that one more page. And that is what separates the dreamers from the doers. Listen, I know you're tired, I know you've been trying, and it feels like nothing is changing, but growth is silent. Progress is invisible until one day it explodes into reality, and you look back and realize it was never about motivation. It was about grit. It was about deciding that your dream is non-negotiable. So the next time you feel like giving up, I want you to do this. Pause, breathe, reconnect, remind yourself why you started. Feel what it will be like when you finally make it. See it, taste it, believe it. Do one small thing, just one. Action is the fuel of motivation. Talk to that version of you who refused to quit, because they're still in there, and they are stronger than you think. And finally, don't wait for motivation to show up like a guest at your door. Go out and create it. Because you were never meant to quit. You were meant to rise. Yeah. Have you ever been in the middle of something you deeply care about? Maybe a personal goal, a business dream, or even a relationship, and suddenly found yourself completely drained. You sit down and think, I can't do this anymore. At the Putin, that moment right there, when the weight feels unbearable and every fiber in your body screams to stop, is not a sign of weakness. It is actually a profound signal that you are in the middle of the arena, giving your all. You're not on the sidelines. You're not watching life pass you by. You are right in the thick of it. And that exhaustion you feel, that's not failure. It's effort. It's commitment. It's passion in motion. You see, no one feels like giving up when they aren't trying. If you were just coasting, if you didn't care, if you had no skin in the game, you wouldn't feel that tension inside. You wouldn't feel that emotional weight. That heaviness only comes when you're invested, when you're putting piece of yourself into something that matters. People who don't try don't feel burned out. People who don't risk don't feel fear. The pressure, the fatigue, the doubts, they're all indicators that you're stretching, growing, reaching for something more. The truth is we live in a world that glamorizes perfection. We're constantly fed images of people succeeding, smiling, thriving, making it look effortless. But what they don't show are the nights filled with frustration, the mornings you wake up wondering if you're fooling yourself, the setbacks that make you question your worth. Those moments are not weaknesses, they're the price of ambition. They're the raw, unfiltered truth of what it looks like to pursue something meaningful. When you feel like giving up, it often means you've been carrying something heavy for a long time. It means you've been working through resistance, both internal and external. That resistance might be fear, self-doubt, failure, rejection, or comparison. And yet, despite all of it, you're still here, still trying, still holding on. That matters more than you know. We often mistake exhaustion for failure, but they are not the same. Exhaustion simply means you've been doing the work. You've been showing up. You've been giving parts of your energy, your heart, your time, and your belief to something uncertain. And that's incredibly brave. You may not be where you want to be yet, but the fact that you care enough to want to quit says something powerful. You are fighting for something real. It's important to understand that every person who ever accomplished anything worth remembering hit the wall at some point. The emotional wall. The physical wall. The mental wall. They questioned themselves, doubted their capacity, and considered quitting. The difference between those who eventually succeed and those who stop isn't that the successful ones never felt like giving up. It's that they didn't interpret that feeling as a reason to stop. They saw it as a signal that they were deep in the process, deep in the challenge, deep in the work. There is a kind of clarity that only comes when you're completely depleted, when you're emotionally on edge, when you've cried the tears, when you've said, I can't do this anymore, and yet something in you whispers, but I'm not done. That whisper is powerful. That whisper is your inner warrior. And that whisper is your truth. To feel like giving up means you've gone beyond surface level efforts. It means you've passed the point of convenience and stepped into commitment. Convenience is easy. Commitment is painful. It asks more of you than you want to give. It asks you to show up on the days you don't feel strong. It asks you to believe even when the results haven't shown up yet. And when your motivation fades, when your strength wavers, and you find yourself thinking it might be easier to walk away, that's when you're closest to something real. Feeling like giving up is not a red light. It's a checkpoint. It's a moment to pause, to assess, and to reconnect, not a reason to turn around. It's part of the emotional cycle of growth. First you start with excitement, then you hit resistance, then comes fatigue, doubt, and frustration. And if you stay with it, if you keep pushing through that storm, you reach transformation. But you can't get there if you quit in the middle. And often, the middle feels like the end. That's why it's so deceptive. You think it's over, but really, it's just where things start to shift. The feeling of wanting to quit is part of the cost of becoming who you are meant to be. You don't get to grow without discomfort. You don't get to evolve without challenge. And most of all, you don't get to succeed without facing the voice that says, this is too hard. That voice is loud. Yes. But it's not the truth. The truth is that your struggle is proof of your effort, your doubt is proof of your courage, and your exhaustion is proof of your investment. You are not weak for feeling like giving up. You are brave for having something so meaningful to fight for. Satifo. There's a belief that floats around in our culture, an idea that has quietly shaped how we approach our goals. That the motivation is something we need to feel before we act, that unless we are fired up, unless we're excited and overflowing with energy, it's not the right time to start. We wait for the inspiration. We wait for the moment that feels right. But the truth is, if you wait for motivation to arrive before you take action, you'll be waiting far too long. Motivation is not the fuel. It's the result. It's not the spark that starts the fire. It's the flame that grows once the fire is already burning. Think about the last time you felt unmotivated. You probably sat still, you scrolled, you procrastinated, and with every hour that passed, you felt worse, less energized, less focused. You beat yourself up for not doing anything, which only made you feel heavier. That's because when we sit in inactivity, it breeds inertia. The longer we wait, the harder it is to move. The resistance grows, the doubts get louder. The brain starts to justify the pause, feeding us lines like, oh, maybe tomorrow, or I'm just not ready right now. But if you'd taken just one small action, just stood up, opened your laptop, written one sentence, or made one call, that momentum could have started shifting your entire state. Action changes how you feel. It wakes something up inside you. We assume motivation should feel big and powerful, like a surge of adrenaline. And yes, sometimes it does. But most of the time, it starts out small, quiet even. It begins with discipline, with routine. With a decision to do the thing, even when you don't feel like it. Especially when you don't feel like it. Because that's the space where transformation begins. Not in the high energy peaks, but in the low energy valleys, where you show up anyway. There's something powerful about doing the work without waiting for the mood to strike. When you begin, even if reluctantly, your brain starts to shift focus. You become engaged in the task, however slightly. And what was once heavy starts to feel possible. What was once impossible starts to feel manageable. Suddenly, the resistance starts to loosen its grip, the fog lifts, you're in motion, you're building traction. And then, almost like magic, motivation appears. Not because it showed up first, but because you created space for it by starting. Let's be real. No one feels motivated all the time. Even the most driven people in the world wake up some days and think, I don't want to do this. What sets them apart isn't that they always feel like it. It's that they've learned not to depend on that feeling. And, they've made a habit of starting anyway. And once they're in it, once the wheels are turning, they begin to remember why they began. Their mind and body catch up. It becomes easier to keep going than it was to start. That's the beauty of momentum. It builds on itself. It's also important to realize that motivation can be incredibly unreliable if it's emotion-based. Emotions are temporary. They're affected by everything. Sleep, weather, hormones, news, conversations, random thoughts. If your progress depends on emotional motivation, your goals will become a roller coaster of starts and stops. But when you shift your mindset from ieteto, you're motivated to acti, to I act regardless, and motivation follows, you regain control. You stop outsourcing your progress to your mood. You stop making excuses that feel valid, but are really just well-worded fears. Taking action without motivation builds something even more powerful than inspiration. It builds trust. Every time you do something without feeling like it, you teach yourself that you are dependable. That you don't take away conditions, that you can rely on your own grit. That builds confidence, and confidence leads to consistency, and consistency is what transforms life, not bursts of effort fueled by fleeting emotions. Some days, your best effort might be tiny. A 5-minute workout. Not a single paragraph. One task on a long list. But even the smallest action is stronger than no action at all. It's not about intensity. It's about integrity. It's about keeping promises to yourself, even when your mind tries to negotiate them away. And motivation may give you a head start, but discipline will carry you when the excitement is gone. And what's remarkable is how often those small acts of discipline end up reigniting your drive. Taking action also helps silence the mental noise. When you're stuck in your head, worrying, overthinking, doubting, motivation feels impossible. But once you take a step, any step, you shift out of the mental loop and into forward motion. You remind yourself that you're capable, that you're not frozen, that you're in charge. And that reminder can be enough to turn the day around. Not because you were inspired, but because you were intentional. The truth is, motivation isn't some mystical force that visits only the lucky. It's something you create by choosing action over and over, especially on the hard days. Not the odd days. It's a byproduct of movement. The reward for effort. The echo of your own discipline. And the more you practice taking action without waiting for motivation, the more often you'll find that motivation meets you halfway. There's a point on the journey to any goal where everything seems to fall apart. You've been pushing, trying, showing up day after day, and then suddenly you hit that wall. You feel stuck, frustrated, and overwhelmed. Progress seems invisible. The voice in your head starts whispering things like, "Oh, maybe this isn't for me," or "Oh, why does this have to be so hard?" And this moment, this painful, exhausting, soul-searching moment, is often where breakthroughs are born. People think breakthroughs come from ease, from flow, from inspiration. But in truth, they often emerge from struggle. They show up when you've reached your limits and are forced to dig deeper than you ever have before. They rise from moments when you're broken down, not when you're at your best. They're not born in celebration. They're born in the shadows, in silence, in solitude, in pain. There is a kind of strength that can only be discovered when you are completely drained and yet choose to take another step. When you have nothing left to give, but you still show up anyway. These moments don't look pretty. They're not the stuff of social media posts or polished success stories. They're raw, they're messy, they're real. And they are where transformation begins. When everything is going well, it's easy to feel confident. It's easy to be consistent. When you're winning, But the moments that test you, those are the ones that shape who you are. When the momentum fades, when the applause stops, when no one is watching, that's where the real growth happens. Because in that space, you have only yourself, only your will, only your heart. And that is where your next level is forged. So many people give up right before things shift. They quit not because they can't make it, but because they don't realize how close they are to the breakthrough. The hardest days are often the last mile before the finish line. But the pain and frustration mask how close you really are. You can't see the reward yet, but that doesn't mean it isn't coming. Progress is often invisible in the moment. The seed grows underground before it breaks through the soil. And just like that seed, your growth may be hidden, but it's still happening. There's also something powerful about pressure. Pressure forces you to get creative, to adapt, to evolve. When everything is comfortable, you don't change. You don't have to. But when life squeezes you, when you're forced into discomfort, that's when you learn what you're made of. That's when you uncover strength, resilience, and resourcefulness you didn't know you had. You become someone new, not by choice, but by necessity. And as painful as those moments are, they often give birth to clarity. When you're at your lowest, you're forced to confront what really matters. You peel away the superficial goals and get to the heart of why you're doing what you're doing. That clarity becomes a new kind of fuel, not based on hype or ego, but based on purpose. And that kind of fuel lasts. That's what carries you through the long stretches where motivation disappears. You'll notice something else too. After every major breakdown, there's a shift, not just in results, but in you. You emerge from those moments stronger, clearer, wiser. You walk differently. You speak differently. You lead differently. Because you've been through something that tried to break you, and it didn't. You faced the storm and you're still standing. That's not just resilience, that's evolution. Breakdowns challenge your identity. They strip away the parts of you that are attached to old ways of thinking, old limits, old fears. They don't feel good. They're necessary. Because if you want to become someone new, someone stronger, more capable, more grounded, you have to let go of who you were. And that process is uncomfortable. It's emotional. It's messy. But it's also sacred. This is why people who have experienced true struggle carry a quiet kind of confidence. Not arrogance. Confidence, because they've lived through moments where they didn't think they'd make it. They faced the dark and found their way through. They know that pain can teach you what no textbook ever could. That suffering, while brutal, can be an extraordinary teacher. And they know that if they can make it through that, they can make it through anything. When you're in the middle of a breakdown, it's hard to imagine that anything good could come from it. Is what's going wrong. All you can see is what's going wrong. All you can feel is the weight. But hindsight reveals the truth. Looking back, you start to see that those were the moments that built you. That what felt like rock bottom was actually a foundation. That the collapse was a clearing for something better. It takes faith to believe that when you're in it. It takes grit. It takes a decision to keep going. Not because it's easy, but because you know there's something on the other side. You may not know what it is. You may not have proof yet. But there's a voice inside you that says, I keep going. That voice is quiet. But it's persistent. So the end, it's the voice of the future you. The one who's already on the other side cheering you on, knowing exactly how strong you are becoming. When you're exhausted, overwhelmed, and on the edge of giving up, the most powerful thing you can do is stop, take a breath, and remember why you started. Not why you started the task in front of you or why you set that particular goal, but why it mattered in the first place. That reason, that emotional core, that deep-rooted purpose is the key to pulling yourself out of the fog. Because when everything else is unclear, when progress stops, when motivation disappears, when the path forward feels impossible, your why becomes your anchor. It's the one thing that doesn't change when everything else does. In the beginning, your why is usually vivid. You're inspired, excited, filled with hope. You see the potential and it lights a fire in you. But as time passes, that fire dims. Life gets busy. Obstacles show up. Failures happen. You get distracted. And slowly, you start to lose sight of the bigger picture. You focus so much on the daily grind, the tasks, the deadlines, the setbacks, that you forget what it's all for. That's when burnout creeps in. That's when you start questioning if any of it is worth it. But the truth is, the problem usually isn't the work itself. It's that you've disconnected from the meaning behind the work. That's why reconnecting with your why isn't just motivational. It's essential. It brings you back to your emotional center. It reminds you that there's a reason you chose this path, a reason you decided to challenge yourself, and that reason goes beyond surface-level goals. It's tied to your identity, your values, your desire to grow, to contribute, to become someone better. Your why is personal, it's emotional, and it's powerful. Think about it. What made you want this in the first place? What did you see when you first imagined this goal? Was it freedom? Was it stability? Was it proving something to yourself or creating a better future for your family? Was it about making a difference, building something lasting, or living life on your own terms? That emotional driver is still there. It just gets buried under layers of pressure and fatigue. But when you stop and remember it, something inside you shifts. Your energy doesn't just come back from nowhere. It comes from reconnecting with meaning. You may have started your journey because you were tired of being stuck. You may have wanted to change your life, escape a situation, or finally believe in yourself. Metse, that moment of decision, that bold leap you took at the start, was driven by something more than just logic. It was emotional. It came from your heart. And if you forget that emotional spark, the journey becomes mechanical. You're just going through the motions. That's when progress feels empty. That's when even the smallest challenge feels like a mountain. Because without your why, the work loses its soul. But when you reconnect with your purpose, everything changes. The same tasks feel different. The same routines carry more weight. You're no longer just pushing through. You're pulled forward by something greater than convenience or comfort. You become fueled by intention. And that intention gives you the strength to keep going, even when things get hard. It's also important to know that your why can evolve. Yeah. The reason you started may not be the same reason you keep going. And that's okay. Maybe you started for survival, and now you continue for growth. Maybe you began out of pain, and now you're driven by vision. That shift is part of your journey. What matters is that you stay connected to the emotional truth behind what you're doing, that you make time to revisit it regularly, especially in the hard moments when the finish line seems too far away. Don't stare at the distance. Instead, look back at where you began. Look at how far you've come. Look at the version of yourself who made the decision to start. That version of you was scared, maybe even unsure, but they took the first step anyway. They believed it was possible. They believed you were worth it. And that belief wasn't a mistake. They weren't wrong. To view and they were brave. In moments of doubt, you need to remember that you didn't begin this journey lightly. You began because something inside you was ready to change. Something inside you knew that settling wasn't an option anymore. That part of you still exists. That part of you still wants this. That part of you still wants tea. You just have to reconnect with it. Get quiet. Get still. Block out the noise and ask yourself, why does this matter to me? Why do I care? Why is giving up not an option? And when you answer that question honestly, from your gut, not your head, you'll feel something awaken. Not instantly. Not like a movie scene, but slowly, steadily you'll feel your center coming back. You'll feel a sense of direction, of purpose, of resolve. That clarity won't eliminate all your problems, but it will give you the strength to face them. Because when you know your why, you can survive almost any how. When you know what you're fighting for, you stop second-guessing whether the fight is worth it. You stop looking for a way out and start finding a way forward. When you're stuck in a cycle of overwhelm or discouragement, the idea of doing something big can feel impossible. The mountain in front of you seems too steep, too high, too much. And that's exactly why learning to focus on one small step at a time is one of the most powerful strategies you can use to stay in motion. Because progress isn't always about big wins. It's not always about huge leaps or dramatic breakthroughs. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is take the next small, manageable step, especially when you feel like giving up. It's easy to become paralyzed by the size of your goal. Maybe you want to change your career, build a business, write a book, lose weight, heal emotionally, or create a life that feels more aligned. Whatever it is, when you look at the full picture, it can seem overwhelming. There are so many moving parts, so many things you don't know yet, so many things that could go wrong. And in that place of overthinking and anxiety, taking any action feels pointless. You start thinking, oh, what's the use? You start thinking, what's the use? And so you freeze. But there's another way. Instead of focusing on the entire staircase, focus on the next step. That's it. Not the 10th step, not the whole journey, just the very next thing you can do. Ooh, that might be as simple as sending one email, writing one paragraph, going for one walk, having one conversation, or setting one boundary. That action may seem small, but small is not the same as insignificant. Small actions compound. Small actions build trust. Small actions create momentum. Momentum is the secret. Once you take one step, you are no longer in a state of inaction. You've shifted, you've moved, you've done something. And that shift changes your energy. It shifts your mindset. It reminds you that you're not stuck. You're simply in a moment of pause, and movement is possible. Okay. That's why focusing on the next small step is so powerful. It takes you out of a spiral of doubt and puts you back in control, one choice at a time. So often, we underestimate the value of tiny wins. We think it doesn't count unless it's dramatic or noticeable. Shadow. But the truth is, the people who succeed long-term are not the ones who always go big. They're the ones who keep showing up. They do small things consistently. They understand that real growth happens in layers. It's built day by day, choice by choice, by choice, stay choice. And sometimes the smallest actions require the most courage, especially when you're tired, defeated, or scared. Taking a small step also teaches you discipline. It proves to your mind that you don't need the perfect circumstances to make progress. You don't need to feel amazing. You don't need to know every detail of the plan. You just need to do what you can with what you have from where you are. That kind of mindset builds resilience. It builds inner strength. It trains you to act even when your emotions are trying to hold you back. It also breaks down resistance. Resistance thrives on inaction. The longer you wait, the more fear grows. The more you hesitate, the louder your doubts become. But when you take a small step, even if it's imperfect, resistance starts to fade. You begin to realize that it's not as hard as you thought it would be. Ietsu. You begin to feel capable again. That's the shift from feeling overwhelmed to feeling empowered. And it starts with something as simple as choosing to act. One small step can also reconnect you to your purpose. It brings you back into alignment with what you value. It reminds you that you're someone who tries, someone who keeps going. Even when the path is unclear, even when the results aren't immediate, even when no one is clapping, you keep moving forward. That is what builds a strong foundation. And that is what builds confidence that lasts. The beauty of focusing on one small step is that it creates progress without pressure. You're not demanding perfection from yourself. You're not expecting huge results overnight. You're simply staying in motion. That motion builds consistency. That consistency creates habits. And those habits eventually carry you toward your goal, sometimes without you even realizing it. What felt impossible a few weeks or months ago starts to feel natural. You look up one day and see how far you've come, all because you kept showing up for the next small step. When things feel too heavy, that's not a sign to do more. It's a sign to simplify. Strip everything down. Ask yourself, what is one thing I can do today that moves me forward, even slightly? Can do that. And do that. And do it again tomorrow. Let the big picture inspire you, but don't let it intimidate you. The magic isn't in the massive actions. It's in the decision to move no matter how slowly, no matter how small the step. Because one small step today makes tomorrow easier. And the day after that, even easier still. There's a voice inside every person that speaks up when things get hard. It's the voice that says you're not good enough, that you're wasting your time, that it would be easier to quit. It whispers doubts, magnifies fears, and tries to convince you that your struggle is proof that you're not strong enough. But there's another voice too. It's quiet and yell. It doesn't panic, but it's there. And it says, keep going. It says, keep going. It says, you've made it this far. It says, you are stronger than this moment. And that voice is who you really are. In hard times, the negative voice often gets louder. That's normal. Stress, exhaustion, and failure all feed that voice. It gathers every past mistake, every insecurity, every comparison, and throws them at you like evidence that you're not meant to win. But the strength to keep going isn't about never hearing that voice. It's about choosing not to believe it. Because for every doubt it throws at you, there is proof in your life that says otherwise. You've already faced things you didn't think you could handle. You've already survived moments that felt impossible. You've already been through days you didn't think you'd get through. And you're still here. That counts for something. In fact, it counts for a lot. You may not always see your own strength, but it shows up every time you rise again after a setback. It shows up when you keep working on something that hasn't given you results yet. It shows up when you show up for others even while carrying your own pain. It shows up in your patience, in your honesty, in your persistence. And it shows up when you choose to keep going even when you have every reason to stop. Strength is often misunderstood and misunderstood. People think it looks like perfection or power or certainty, but real strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's a quiet choice to try again. Sometimes it's wiping your tears, taking a deep breath and doing what needs to be done. Sometimes it's saying no when your heart is breaking. Sometimes it's staying kind in a world that hasn't always been kind to you. That's the strength that matters. That's the strength that builds resilience, not just results. Every time you resist the urge to quit, you're building mental and emotional muscle. You're training your mind to focus on what matters instead of what hurts. You're choosing to believe in the bigger picture, even when the moment you're in feels dark. That ability to hold on through the hard stuff, to stay grounded in your values, even when your emotions are screaming, that's power. That's the kind of strength that creates real change, not just temporary wins. The voice that tells you to give up doesn't know the full story. It doesn't remember how much you've already overcome. It doesn't see your full potential. It speaks from fear, not from truth. Not from truth. But the part of you that refuses to quit, that part knows who you really are. It remembers your reasons. It sees your growth, even when the results aren't visible yet. It knows that you are becoming someone stronger through every challenge you face. And even when you're tired, even when you've lost some of your motivation, that part of you keeps showing up. You don't need to feel strong to be strong. That's the lie that keeps people stuck. Waiting to feel confident, waiting to feel ready, waiting to feel fearless. Those feelings don't always come when you need them. But action doesn't require a feeling. It requires a decision. And when you choose to move forward in the middle of fear or fatigue, you prove to yourself that you are capable of more than you realized. Every one of those moments adds up. Every one of those decisions becomes part of your identity. You are not the thoughts that tell you to quit. You are the person who has fought through storms, adapted through change, grown through failure, and still has the courage to try. That's who you really are. And sometimes you need to sit with yourself and remember all the versions of you who didn't give up. The one who kept studying when it felt pointless. The one who kept working through grief. The one who held on through heartbreak. The one who showed up in the mirror and chose to believe in better days. That version of you still exists. And it's stronger now than it ever was. When everything feels heavy and uncertain, it's not about pushing harder. It's about connecting deeper, going inward, remembering your values, remembering your journey, and honoring the strength that doesn't need validation or applause, the strength that just is. That kind of strength will carry you through anything, not because it makes the pain disappear, but because it gives you the courage to keep walking through it. There will always be moments when quitting seems like the easier option. But easy doesn't always lead to peace. Sometimes the harder road, the one that stretches you, that challenges you, that calls you to become more, that's the road that leads to meaning. And choosing that path, even when it hurts, is proof of your power. You don't need to conquer everything today. You don't need to have all the answers, but you do have what it takes to keep going. That voice inside, the one that won't let you give up, that's not just willpower. That's your truth. That's your strength, so the next time you find yourself tired, overwhelmed, and ready to give up, pause, take a breath, and remember who you are. You are not the doubts. You are not the fear. You are not the fear. You are not the voice telling you to quit. You are the one who keeps going. You are the one who gets back up You are the one who fights, grows, and rises even when no one sees it. Let your strength speak louder than your fear. Let your purpose carry you when your energy fades. Let your next small step remind you that progress is still being made. Because giving up is not your story. Rising is.